It is July 4th, 2011, and we are celebrating our independence today. The first thing I want to do is give you an explanation of the title of this video. Death to Bilderberg, a Citizen's Declaration of Independence and War. First of all, when I say death to Bilderberg, I want to be very, very clear with you what I mean by that. It's by no means is it a threat on the life of any individual. I'm not talking about death to a person, right? Not death to anyone, any being. I'm talking about death to an organization, death to the organization Bilderberg, as in the end of Bilderberg, as in shutting Bilderberg down, as in they no longer meet, they no longer exist as an organization. As in it's illegal. So I'm not, that's what this is about. It's a declaration of war and independence from Bilderberg. We're talking about an organization that has no allegiance to any nation. Right now, I'm a U.S. citizen, the United States of America. I'm a veteran. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a veteran. I grew up Christian, traditional family, Eagle Scout, served as a missionary for a couple years. Obviously, I wasn't going to be celibate for my whole life. But yeah, I did the whole monkish thing for a couple years. And you know, served in artillery. I'm in my right mind. I'm married, have 5 children. I had a 4.0 through undergrad and grad school. I work with youth to help them stay on the right path. I have plenty to lose. I have no criminal background or history or record or anything like that. I'm just a decent, good family man trying to make it in the world. That's all I am. It's a family man trying to make it in the world. And but I have had time to research Bilderberg. If you have no clue what Bilderberg is, then you're really ignorant. You need to watch a few films. You need to watch this one, Endgame. It describes it. Jim Tucker's a guy who's been covering him for 31, 32 years. And it goes all about, it's all about the Bilderbergers and their elitist plan. This was a really great one, Terror Storm. You got to watch that. It's about how government staged terror. This one you need to watch, Loose Change Final Cut. You got to watch that because it covers 9/11 and the hoax that was. It's obviously an inside job. If you look at the evidence, there's no way men with box cutters could have taken out our Air Force without some help from the inside, a la Dick Cheney, Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, you know, some people like that. You got the Obama deception is really important. Show what a phony he is. Fall of the Republic. You got to watch those. So again, I'm not advocating any violence by any stretch of the imagination. What I'm talking about is death to an organization. Now, can I be considered Al-Qaeda for that? Well, how can I be considered Al-Qaeda for opposing an organization that has no country, that has no home, no allegiance, no flag, no anthem, no nation status, and has no loyalty to anyone, that actually is the true Al-Qaeda? Bilderberg is the true terrorist organization. So I'm actually declaring war against the terrorists. So I endorse the Pentagon, I endorse the U.S. Congress and all the state governments, and I support the state governments, I support Homeland Security. I have a relative who's you know, anyway, who's a good hacker, works for Homeland Security. And he's fully aware of these documentaries. In fact, he's the one who introduced me to these documentaries and introduced me to the truth several years ago. So there are good people in our government, good people in every level. There are good police. And what happens is that we as Americans get turned on each other, and what the Bilderbergers do is they try to turn us against each other. It's like this thing with the this obsession that we have with bashing Mexicans, and that they have with us. We're being turned against each other as if that we are one another's worst enemies, when the real head of the serpent, the head of the dragon, is Bilderberg. And so that's what we need to focus on. And I just want to start this conversation I want to start a conversation that's going to gain critical mass. In other words, this concept of putting an end to Bilderberg is going to become an international phenomenon. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of starting this conversation and being willing to make that sacrifice. I don't know what it'll entail. I mean, I've already gone through all the scenarios in my mind. Trust me, I have a perfect score. I took the graduate exam, and I have a perfect score for analytical writing and reading. In other words, that means that, and I can show that to anybody. I can prove it if I need to. I have the document. Unlike President Obama, who cannot produce an actual birth certificate, I can produce my test scores right here. But I can analyze things, and I analyze this for myself and what all the ifs, ands, or buts, or whatever could happen. But I've chosen to do this. I've chosen to start this conversation in a particular way, and that's why I want to be very clear, not advocating violence, except in self-defense, of course. We understand that the Bilderbergers are elitists, that they want to eliminate 80% of the world's population, and that's what some of those environmental movements are really about, is shutting down life, shutting down family. I guess we could declare on 100% of them and declare genocide on the Bilderbergers, but that would lower us to their level, and I wouldn't sully myself that way. So what I think we need to do is start a conversation about how to shut it down appropriately. You know, we're out there declaring all these wars, right? And we're declaring war, and the global war on terrorism. It's a global war, right? So we got to go to Iraq, okay? But we don't stop there. We've got to go into Afghanistan. Well, we've got to go into Iran. It's the Middle East Flavor of the Month Club. So we're going to invade our Middle East country of the month. We've got to go into Libya. We've got to go into Syria. We've got to go into Saudi Arabia. Now, while they're all declaring all these wars on people that aren't threats to us, and frankly, we're going to start losing those wars, which could lead to nuclear war, because our troops are going to get slaughtered in Libya if they go in there, because those people are not oppressed by a dictator. He's actually given them weapons. And that's what's so silly about that whole Libya affair, is that if Gaddafi was really a dictator, do you think he could hand out millions of weapons to his people and they wouldn't revolt against him? If he was a dictator and he gave his people weapons, what do you think that they would do to a dictator? They would revolt against him and turn on him. So it's utterly absurd to think of him as a dictator. That's all propaganda. They did the same thing against Saddam Hussein, and you believed it then. I didn't. I didn't support the invasion. I guess I'm just savvy. But you can be savvy too. And I'm just giving you a little way to read one key. I just gave you a key, is to look through the propaganda. If a dictator gives weapons to his people, they'll revolt against him. Hence, Gaddafi's giving weapons to his people, therefore he cannot be a dictator, or he would be overthrown. Okay, that's just basic Aristotelian logic. So anyway, while we're declaring all these wars, why don't we actually declare a war? Now, we don't have to wait for Congress to do this. We don't have to wait. See, we sit back and think, oh, we need to go to the state legislatures. We need to go to the federal Congress. No, we don't. We're citizens. We're sovereign citizens, in the sense that that's a court finding. We don't have a king. We're not subjects to a king, right? Each one of us is sovereign over his or her own life. And people say, well, are you saying you're above the law? We're not saying we're above the law. The law is something we agree to. We agree to submit to the law. So we uphold the law. We uphold the Constitution. Go ask, according to Obama, he's above the Constitution. So if you want to have ask questions about who thinks they're above the law, go talk to Congress, and go talk to the Supreme Court, and go talk to Obama, because they're the ones who go beyond the law. We just want to confine ourselves to the Constitution. So while we're declaring all these wars, why don't we declare a war that will actually work? Why don't we declare a war that will put an end to things like the TSA? I mean, you can go down. We could get a few thousand men and go raise hell at airports and go harass a bunch of policemen who can't think and can't do anything and are all vaccinated. And we can go harass a bunch of TSA agents and beat the piss out of them for sticking their hands down people's pants. But that's not going to really solve the problem. That is actually what they want. The Bilderbergers want us to turn on ourselves. They want us to fight internally. They want us to fold in and collapse from within. No, what we have to do is unite together as whole, healthy, complete individuals and face the true enemy, which is Bilderberg. So I'm addressing three groups of people right now. One, I'm addressing you as U.S. citizens, just average, ordinary man. I know what we have is an epidemic. It's all over America. Men's testicles have disappeared. They've just outright disappeared. Men's balls have disappeared. They can't find them. They have no B and B. They have no brains and they have no balls. Men's brains have disappeared. So in order to be a real man, you have to have a brain to look at evidence and information and make decisions about it. And you have to have the balls to carry it through. And I know that, you know, you've lost your testicles, and I don't slight you for that. I know you've misplaced your brain. You set it on the shelf somewhere. You forgot which shelf it was. You forgot where you put your balls. It's in the. Check the closet. Have you checked every closet? Have you checked every shelf? Have you checked in those places behind, you know, where you hide things down in your drawers or whatever it is? Maybe it's out there, out in the garage. But you need to find your balls. You need to find those testicles, and the testosterone that's in them needs to get coursing through your veins again. And then to use the IQ that God gave you, the instincts that men used to be wily, they used to be clever, they used to be able to spot a raw deal. And we as men need to do this. It's not a responsibility of our children. It's not responsibility of the elders, of the handicapped. It's not the responsibility of the women. It is our responsibility as men to stand up and protect our families. That's our primary responsibility that God put on us, was to protect our families. So we as men need to find our testicles. We need to study this information that I've outlined for you, these documentaries, and I'll link, obviously I've linked things in the details for you to research. I know you're visual people, but if you want to read a book that talks a lot about it, this is a book I always recommend, The Creature from Jekyll Island, because it talks about how the Bilderbergers are really financiers. They're banksters. They're bankers that have been bankrolling things, and they like to do things from behind. That's how they control politicians, from behind the scenes, because they're funding everything and they're buying up corporations. And so they've been able to stay out of the limelight. But we need to pull them into the light. See, that's the thing about Bilderberg. If they're secret and they're elite. Now, if they were doing good humanitarian work, what would they be afraid of a meeting in public and fully exposing their meetings to the public camera? So what I'm talking about is ask yourself, you know, why do you, as men, just regular men, I'm just addressing the U.S. citizens at this moment. The other two groups I want to address are all the people that work in our defense, the people in our military, the people in the CIA, the FBI, the Homeland Security, the White House, the Congress. I'll address you as well. And then the other people I want to address are the Bilderbergers themselves. You know, I want to say a word to you, because I have respect for you as human beings, as created in the image of God, that I wouldn't do anything to harm you. But getting back to the U.S. citizens, do you want to be dominated by pot-bellied pedophiles, by old people? Bunch of old people. Just that's what the Bilderbergers are. You got a bunch of old people, right, that just do things in secret, that want to kill you because they're elitist and they think that, you know, that makes sense to them. Do you feel like we don't need to do that? You don't need to be dominated by people like that, by sick old bastards. It's just, you don't need to do that. Now, as far as the people in national defense, you know, and all the bodyguards, you know, bodyguards for the elites. I want to address them too. And militaries of the world, you know, all the people that, when you signed up, I mean, I served in the military of the United States. So you swear an oath to protect and defend your nation. You didn't sign up to protect and defend people who would betray you. See, Bilderbergers are traitors. They're seeking the overthrow of all nations. They're seeking a one world government. Well, you can't have a one world government unless you break some eggs. And those eggs are your nation. That's your homeland. Did you sign up to support your leaders in overthrowing your nation? And you bodyguards have to understand that. Now, there are certain stories, like in the Bible, there's a story about one of the kings of Israel. And the Israelites were being overthrown by, now there was a lot of religious turmoil, and Baal was one of the false gods. And one of the kings said, well, let's call a festival together. And they called a fest to Baal, the god Baal, which is the false god, right? And by calling that festival, they were able to round up all the heads of the worship of Baal, and they were able to lock them up, and they actually killed them, which the king had the authority to do. But you have an example there of a roundup